number 10 is Yuki Onna. Sometimes referred to as the Snow Woman, Yuki Onna is a Japanese demon that can be traced back as far as the early 1300s. While there have been several different incarnations of Yuki Onna throughout the years, the standard legend is that she is a tall woman with pale skin and long black hair, usually wearing a white kimono, and appears only when the snow falls. Almost like a ghost, it's said the Yuki Onna hovers above the ground, gliding through the air. But the most terrifying part is that she has the ability to appear wherever she wishes, at any time. Meaning, no matter where you are never safe from her attack. Said to be the demon of hyperthermia, when Yuki Onna appears before her victims, she will ask them to hold a little one in their arms. However, anybody who accepts this offer will be frozen to death by the young one. That being said, if you refuse her offer, Yuki Onna will still find a way to bring you to your death. And once completed, she feasts on her victims' souls, sucking their essence through the frozen corpse. So it's lose-lose no matter what. Coming in at number 9, the Zoovitz. An indigenous demon from the Shoshonean mythology, Zoovitz is said to be a giant ogre with a taste for the flesh of little ones. While there isn't a ton of info regarding him specifically, he is most famous for stealing the sun and kidnapping young people. In one story, the demon ogre stole the eggs of a sacred dove, and terrified, the dove enlisted the help of some other creatures to help her rescue her young. So along came an eagle and a crane who helped steal back the dove's eggs. But of course, once Zoovitz realized they had stolen back what he had taken, he became very, very angry. The birds knew they had to hide or else risk being killed by the evil ogre, and with the help of a tricky little badger, they managed to evade his wrath. Rather than finding the hiding birds, the demon was instead tricked and told the dove was hiding in a nearby hole. But once he walked inside, the animals quickly covered the opening with large rocks, trapping him inside indefinitely. From that day forward, the place was known as the Devil's Hole. But it is unknown if the demon remains trapped inside or if he managed to escape. So with that in mind, you better be careful not to do anything that might bring him your direction. Coming in at number 8, the Kappa. Described in Japanese folklore as being a half-reptilian, half-human monster with green skin, webbed hands and feet, and a turtle-like shell on their back, the Kappas are vicious creatures known to attack a swimming victim when they least suspect it. The good news is that they usually are looking to steal a mythical organ called the shirikodama. But before you get too relieved, it doesn't really seem like they care if it exists or not, and they are known to perform all different kinds of malevolent deeds to try and get their hands on it. Kappas are known to try and drown people and animals, kidnap little ones, eat the flesh of humans, and even commit SA on female victims, all to get their precious shirikodama, which they believe is found in your butt. What's potentially most interesting about these horrible little creatures, however, is they are not always out to kill. In fact, they're only said to become harmful when they are not respected as gods, which is a bit difficult considering they are widely regarded as demons. However, it is said that their favorite food is the cucumber, and some believe that if you eat one before you go swimming, you can protect yourself from their attack. That being said, other texts state this will only draw them near you, so really, you are never safe from their wrath. Coming in at number 7 is the Zahak. Also referred to as Azidahaka, this Persian demon from the Zoroastrian religion is definitely one you do not want to mess with. For starters, before we get into how creepy he is, according to certain texts, he's got some pretty extreme mommy issues. Son of Wadag, who is described as a great sinner, in some texts the two have a very unnatural relationship, often engaging in acts that, let's just say, should not be done between a mother and her son. And I mean, there is just no way that someone is gonna come out of that a balanced and healthy person. Besides the creepy incest stuff, he is described as being a cunning monster with 3 heads, 3 mouths, 6 eyes, and giant snakes on his shoulders, which is terrifying enough, but the snakes are not just for show. In fact, it's said that he must satiate their intense hunger with a minimum of 2 human human brains per day. And from what I can tell, there is not much rhyme or reason to who he chooses as the next victim. So steer clear or your brain could be next. Coming in at number 6, Pazuzu. Popularized in the 1st millennium BCE, Pazuzu is a Babylonian demon from the underworld who is believed to possess the capability to bring great damage to our world. Son of Hanbi, the king of demons, Pazuzu was given the power to control the west and south winds, which could bring the entire world into famine during the dry season or cause a massive storm of locusts in the rainy season, neither of which sound like great options if you ask me. Often represented as having large bulging eyes, a canine face, a scaly body, large talons, and enormous wings, what's interesting about this demon is that he's sort of viewed like a double-edged sword, meaning it was believed that because he had great power to harm, it was also believed he was equally capable of protecting one from the very danger he presented. That being said, you must be careful when making any kind of deal for protection with a demon. After all, they do not have the best track record. Coming in at number 5 is Dakini. Found in both Hinduism and Buddhism, Dakini is a demon, or rather a race of female demons known to devour and feast on the flesh of humans and our vital essence. That being said, Dakini is a tad bit more complicated than that, depending on what texts you are referring to and what time period you're looking at. In some texts, rather than a demon, Dakini is viewed as one of the goddesses of the 6 chakras. In these later texts where she is viewed as more goddess-like, it said she was one of the 7 deities who guard another god, Varahi. These 7 deities drank and consumed the 7 essential ingredients of the body: the blood, skin, flesh, fat, bones, marrow, and the semen of enemies. And they were experts in diluting, slaying, paralyzing, striking, swallowing, and exterminating the wicked Daityas, who are another form of demon, which, frankly, is still not sounding so good to me. Slightly differently, in Buddhism, they are also flesh eaters, but in this version, they are captured by the Buddha, Vairocana, via a summoning, and promised freedom so long as they stop eating meat. The Dakini protest this, saying they will starve, and so as a compromise, they are taught how to consume the essence of dead humans, found in the head, liver, or heart. Honestly, either way, goddess or demon, they are still depicted as being flesh-eating entities equipped to take your life instantly. So, as far as I'm concerned, they are not one I would like to meet. Coming in at number 4, Pishacha. Once again, another flesh-eating demon that appears in both Buddhist and Hindu mythologies. The Pishacha is a malevolent being that has on more than one occasion been called the very manifestation of all evil. And if that doesn't frighten you, then I don't know what will. Said to be creatures that prefer the darkness of the night, Pishachas are usually found haunting cremation grounds, but do also possess the ability to shapeshift. So truly, you never know how many of them could be around you, hiding in plain sight. Plus, just to make things worse, they don't just feed on human flesh, but also our energy too. So they will often possess human beings and feast on our energy, all while altering our thoughts and afflicting the possessed human with a variety of illnesses, sometimes even driving them insane. Now, there are some mantras that are said to be capable of driving the Pishacha away and stopping it from taking over the possessed human. But realistically, I don't even want to get to that point, so I guess that is just one more reason to avoid the cemetery at night. Coming in at number 3 is Abizu. This ghoul shows up in a variety of different cultures, from Christianity to ancient Greece, and may even have roots dating back as far as the Mesopotamian era. But no matter where you read about her, she is without a doubt an evil demon. Usually depicted as having a greenish, gleaming face with disheveled, serpent-like hair, it said Abizu does not sleep, but rather wanders the world at night looking for her victims. Should you cross her, she can afflict you with any number of maladies, such as deafness, blindness, obstructions of the throat, madness, or bodily pain. However, her preferred victims are the ones unable to defend themselves. Like many demons, she hunts the vulnerable young in our our society. But unlike many others, she does not crave their flesh for herself. Instead, she's motivated by envy due to her own infertility, and believes that if she can't have her own little one, then no one can. While on the hunt, the Abizu seeks out mothers in labor or who've just given birth, and steals their little ones in the night before taking their life. So whatever you do, stay far away from the Abizu. Coming in at number 2 is Lamashtu. Daughter of the sky god Anu, Lamashtu is a Mesopotamian demon with one of the most frightening and evil vices I have ever come across. And I can safely say you absolutely do not want to get wrapped up with her. Generally, she's depicted as a ghoulish hybrid monster with a hairy body, a lioness's head, donkey's teeth and ears, long fingers and fingernails, and the feet of a bird with sharp talons. But the last thing you should be worried about is what she looks like. The malevolent Lamashtu is said to commit a variety of heinous acts like eating men and drinking their blood, causing nightmares, infesting rivers and lakes, and cursing her victims with deadly diseases. However, the most evil things she commits are on the most vulnerable. Her favorite evil deed is to haunt pregnant mothers right up until they go into labor, and if possible, kidnaps their young while they are breastfeeding. From there, she takes her abducted victims and devours their flesh, bones, and blood until there is nothing left. What's even more frightening about her is that, unlike some of the other demons, she's acting out these malevolent deeds on her own accord, rather than at the instruction of a deity, meaning she could very well be a demigod in her own right. Even worse is that the only thing that can stop her is the demon of famine, Pazuzu, meaning you need to be involved in the mess of 2 demons to escape her wrath. So seriously, do whatever you can to never have to deal with her as long as you live. And last up today in our number 1 spot is Kali. Not to be confused with the goddess Kali, the demon Kali, or Kali Purush, was once the ruler during the Kali Yuga, and is considered to be one of the most powerful demons in the Hindu religion. In the Hindu belief, there are 4 different yugas that run in a cycle, and each yuga is said to last 4,320,000 years. And the Kali Yuga, where the demon Kali was the malevolent ruler, is the last of the cycle and by far the most destructive. Most commonly, the demon Kali is described as a massive creature with large fangs and wild busy green hair, covered in soot, with the foulest stench permanently emanating from his being. But it's not just his looks that are frightening. It's said Kali corrupted the entire world in an attempt to destroy it, slowly eating away at people's beliefs and making them forget the word of God. So his destruction had less to do with hunting you down and eating you, and more to do with trying to overrule the entire world, which is about as terrifying as you can get. Now, technically speaking, according to ancient texts, we are still in the Kali Yuga, as it started after the death of Krishna in 3102 BCE, which honestly could make some sense if there is a demon ruling over our world at this very moment. Starting us off at number 10 is Agares. Believed to be the demon who causes and controls earthquakes in Christian theology, Agares is considered to be a Duke of Hell with over 30 legions of demons under his command, and the control of the entire eastern side of Hell. I mean, he just doesn't seem like someone you'd want to mess with. Now, all that being said, he does have one of the strangest appearances ever described. Apparently, he appears as an old man riding on the back of a crocodile, carrying a hawk on his fist, which is incredibly specific and equally unsettling. Like, can the crocodile attack you? Or is that part just for show? I mean, honestly, either way, if I saw a demon ride in on the back of a giant crocodile, I would not be looking forward to what came next. Plus, remember, he can also cause earthquakes, so even if you aren't cursed or mauled by his crocodile sidekick, he could probably just kill you by starting an earthquake that sent you straight to hell. Next up at number 9, Rakshasas. With the origins from Hindu mythology, Rakshasas are a terrifying breed of shape-shifting demons with the ability to reveal themselves to you in almost any way they choose. Although their true form is usually described as large and beast-like, if they so choose, they can appear as animals, as monsters, or even in the form of beautiful women if they really want to throw you off. In fact, one of the most famous of the demons, Putana, is well known for her attempt to kill the little Krishna by offering him milk from her poisoned breast. They also are known to prey predominantly at night, waiting until the sun goes down to come out of the shadows in the cemeteries they rest in, before feasting on the flesh of anyone they can find. Strangely, another sign they are near is they will suck all the cows dry of their milk. Now, the sort of good news is that apparently not all Rakshasas are created equally. Some are more evil than others, but still, I wouldn't try my chances, cause generally speaking, they're all pretty bad. Next up at number 8, the Jin Kaninki. If Japanese folklore has taught me anything, it's that there is no shortage of terrifying creatures within Japanese culture. And apparently the same goes for their demons. The Jin Kaninki are said to be the spirits of evil people who have since died, and like many other demons, have a strong taste for the flesh and blood of humans. However, unlike some of the others on this list, the Jin Kaninki prefer the taste of corpses, so they tend to hide in cemeteries, only revealing themselves when they think that no one else is around. But I have to say, the most interesting and strange thing about these demons is that unlike others of their realm, they apparently seem to hate themselves for their flesh-hungry tendencies. And not only do they have a deep-seated self-loathing streak, they hate all of their kind as well. Said to be able to alternate between the physical form of a normal human and their disgusting flesh-devouring demon side, there is no clear description of what they're supposed to look like, only that it's supposed to be indescribably terrifying. Now, the sort of good news about the Jin Kaninki is that they will only eat the dead, so you are safe from being attacked by one. However, many believe that even witnessing one of these demons in their evil form can cause you to die on the spot out of sheer fear, so you still can't really win. Next up at number 7, Aseg. With origins dating back to the ancient Sumerian civilization during the Mesopotamia era, Aseg is one freaky demon you do not want to get to know. First off, it's said he appears so horrendous that his presence alone has the capability to boil fish alive in their own river. I'll be honest, I don't totally get how that connects, but still, it would be wildly horrifying to watch a river boil and see all the fish rise to the surface, so I won't question it. The next horrible thing about this giant, three-legged, three-armed, necklace, multiple-eyed creature is that he's accompanied by an entire army of rock demon offspring that were created by his union with the mountains themselves. So because of their half-mountain, half-demon origins, they are virtually indestructible, just as he is. Lastly, it's said he will kill any human with a fever or head disease. Even something as small as a headache could make you a target to his evil doings. So unless you're looking to get ripped apart by a giant rock man and his army of rock babies, just keep away from anything that could summon him your way. Coming in at number 6, Abaddon. According to the Old Testament, Abaddon generally refers to a place of ruin or destruction. However, in the New Testament, it seems to have taken on a slightly different and even more frightening personification. The demon Abaddon, whose name, as we've covered, translates to the Destroyer, is just as terrible as you might imagine. Generally depicted as a frightening winged creature, Abaddon is said to rule over a bottomless pit filled with an army of locusts who can torment anyone at his command. I mean, doesn't that just sound like a horrifying capability? What's interesting about this demon is that there is actually some debate around who Abaddon truly sides with. Some say he's an antichrist, a follower of Satan, or maybe even Satan himself because of his overall cruelties. But in some literature, he is seen more as a king sent from God, as he specifically targeted his army of locusts on those who did not have the symbol of God across their forehead. However, that being said, no matter if he is an angel or a demon, I would much rather not get anywhere near him. Coming in at number 5 is Rangda. According to Balinese mythology, Rangda is one of the most feared demons out there. For starters, she is known as the evil demon queen of the Layaks, which, if you aren't familiar with, are essentially ghost-like figures from Bali who during the day can appear as human to blend in, but at night show their true form, breaking free from their human bindings in search for pregnant women and suck their blood. Really, it's very charming. Rangda herself is said to be just as bloodthirsty as her followers, but her appetite is even darker. She quite literally thirsts for her revenge on the human race in the form of eating and devouring unsuspecting little ones in the night. Usually depicted as a grotesque old woman in the nude with large fangs, unkempt hair, and a giant tongue, it doesn't take much for this demon to come down and ruin your life. So if I were you, I would stay away from mentioning her name to Alexa, cause you just never know what could bring her your way. Next up at number 4 is Akamana. This demon comes from the Iranian religion of Zoroastrianism and is quite possibly the most manipulative one out there. Said to be the demon of sensual desire, Akamana is believed to be the inherent cause of evil intent, evil thinking, and evil actions. So essentially, if you've ever done a bad thing or had a bad thought, apparently that was on this guy. But what makes him incredibly terrifying is not only his capability to manipulate the minds of humans and trick them into performing evil acts, he also possesses the ability to somehow use people's good deeds to perform evil, meaning even a good deed done on Earth could be manipulated by Akamana and have terrible consequences you don't even know about. So I guess that means you are never truly safe from his wrath. Often described as being the true son of Satan himself, Akamana is regarded as the most violent demon to ever be born into the depths of hell, whose only true desire is to destroy everything and everyone in his path. So for very obvious reasons, stay as far away from this demon as you can. Next up at number 3, Dandelion. Said to be the commander of 36 legions of spirits, Dandelion is a terrifying demon with the power to literally ruin your life. Eerily described as having the form of a man with many countenances, meaning many faces, it's said he possessed all men and women's faces. Now, whether that means he can shape-shift his face into whatever he pleases, or whether that means he has a ton of different faces on his person at all times is a little foggy, but either of those options sound horrifying, so it's a lose-lose no matter what. Believe it or not, that's not even the worst part. It's said that Dandelion's greatest power is his ability to control your mind, as according to writings, he knoweth ye thoughts of all men and women and can change them at his will. So if you somehow make your way into his radar, he could literally control your mind, and from there, who knows what he could make you do. Strangely, it's also said he can cause love, which may not sound as evil as his other abilities, but he's literally manipulating his victims' minds and forcing them into a life together, taking away any semblance of free will, which to me is one of the most terrifying things I can think of. Coming in at number 2, Asmodeus. Considered by some to be the worst of the demons, Asmodeus, also referred to as the Prince of Hell, is often depicted as a demon of lust and wrath who will not hesitate to kill anything in his path. Unless, that is, you are familiar with his oddly specific Achilles heel, which of course I'm going to tell you about, even though you should still not mess around with demons. So as the story goes in the book of Tobit, there is a young woman named Sarah who very much wants to be married. Sarah finds a man, they get engaged, then get married, but right before the moment they are about to consummate the marriage, Asmodeus shows up and slays her beloved. Now, one time would be bad enough, but for sweet Sarah, who just wants a husband, Asmodeus kills her next 7 husbands in the exact same way. But on the 8th try, she ends up marrying a man named Tobias, who shares with Sarah what the archangel Raphael told him, Asmodeus's weakness. So on their wedding night, as expected, the evil killer demon arrives ready to slay her 8th husband. But this time, Tobias tosses a fish's heart and liver onto some coals, causing a giant waft of smoke that apparently makes Asmodeus scamper off. Now, even knowing that knowledge, I don't typically have fish heart and liver on hand, let alone can I set them on a bed of hot coals, so I would still very much be in great danger if this demon ever paid me a visit. And last up in our number 1 spot today is Moloch. Since the medieval days, the bull-headed Minotaur demon Moloch has been a widely feared entity that anyone with their head screwed on straight would want nothing to do with. That being said, depending on who you asked or at what point of history you're studying, some writings depicted him as a deity. To the Canaanites, for example, it's been suggested that they offered up their young as a sacrifice to Moloch, who they considered a god. However, as the world shifted and changed, the sentiment surrounding what some now call the cult of Moloch swiftly shifted, and just like any cult to the outside world, the leader was not what you would call a cool guy. In the book of Leviticus, as well as many other religious texts, he is not spoken of highly. In fact, it's mentioned that anyone who offered to give up their offspring to him would be stoned to death for their sins. To be fair, he is a demon that feasts on the flesh of little ones, so I mean, that kind of checks out for me. And if people really were throwing their own flesh and blood into pits of fire in order to please what they believe to be their god, let's just call it a fair consequence for their insane actions. So with all that in mind, just do yourself a favor and leave this demon alone, or the repercussions could literally be deadly.
In our number 10 spot today, we have The Excerpt. This story comes from Reddit user SpaceWitchXXX, and they wrote, quote, "I was asleep, it was like 3 a.m., and I wake up to it reading an excerpt from the Lord of the Rings audiobook where they go into that giant spider's cave. I've got arachnophobia, so waking up in the middle of the night while your robotic cylinder chats you up about giant man-eating spiders isn't all that pleasant. Yeah, even without arachnophobia, that would just be a terrifying and very disorienting experience. I don't know why everybody's Alexa likes to do the scariest stuff at the worst possible times. When people are home alone in the middle of the night, Alexa sees a vulnerable moment and she really takes advantage. One of the replies asks the original poster if they talk in their sleep as a possible reason for how this Alexa got the idea to read a terrifying Lord of the Rings excerpt, to which the poster replied, quote, "Not that I'm aware of, but even if I did, I don't know why I would say, Alexa, read me the Lord of the Rings." In our number 9 spot today, we have Bad Weather. This creepy Alexa story comes from Reddit user THEHLS08730, and they wrote about Alexa's very unnerving response when they asked the simple question, "Alexa, what's the weather like today?" I ask my Google this all the time. You gotta know about that wind chill temperature before you head outside here in Canada. It's very crucial. While that is the kind of answer someone would be expecting to get from their Alexa, this user got so much more. Alexa replied, quote, "The 9.1 magnitude earthquake off of the coast of Sumatra was estimated to occur at a depth of 30 kilometers. The fault zone that caused the tsunami was roughly 1,300 kilometers long, vertically displacing the sea floor by several meters along that length. The ensuing tsunami was as tall as 50 meters, reaching 5 kilometers inland near Mabola, Sumatra. This tsunami is the most widely recorded, with nearly 1,000 combined tide gauge and eyewitness measurements from around the world reporting a rise in wave height, including places in the US, the UK, and Antarctica. An estimated $10 billion US of damages is attributed to the disaster, with around 230,000 people reported dead." Okay, Alexa, it's quite an eerie response to a fairly straightforward question. My favorite reply on the post was from someone who goes by the username Commandrix, and they wrote, quote, "Probably Alexa's way of telling you that the weather is foul, but it could be worse." In our number 8 spot today, we have Alexa, laugh. This is actually one that wreaked havoc back in 2018, and it sent a bunch of people absolutely spiraling. It's definitely creepy enough to have Alexa answer a question with some eerie words, but what would you do if your Alexa just randomly started laughing out of nowhere? Back in 2018, hundreds of people unfortunately experienced just that. One person who had this happen to them took to the internet to write, quote, "I was lying in my bed about to fall asleep when Alexa on my Amazon Echo Dot lets out a very loud and creepy laugh," before they ended their post with their fears of getting killed that night. I mean, can you really blame them? I hear one strange but very reasonable noise in my house and I immediately think that something horrible is about to happen. Either an evil person or a poltergeist. There's no in between. In the end, Amazon actually had to acknowledge this problem because it was so big. They ended up changing the phrase that they basically used as a scapegoat for this whole freaky situation. They changed the command from Alexa laugh to Alexa can you please laugh. They said the changing of the phrase would solve the problems because they said that it was causing false positives and setting the device off. Seems suspicious, but at least the problem seems to have been fixed for now. In our number 7 spot today, we have spilling secrets. A few years ago, a couple in Seattle got a call from someone that they knew and who was a contact in their phone, but that they weren't super close with, like they hadn't spoken in a while. This is exactly why it was so strange that this person, when the couple answered, said to unplug all of the Alexas in their house as soon as possible. Okay. That's really unsettling. Basically, what had happened is that an Alexa in this couple's home had secretly recorded a private conversation between the two, and not only this, but then the Alexa took the liberty of sending it to a random contact in their phone. Thankfully, this person called to let them know. They obviously pushed to bring it to Amazon's attention, and they said that this was something that they needed to fix. Apparently, they said that, quote, it was an extremely rare occurrence, and that they are, quote, taking steps to avoid this in the future. It honestly just makes you wonder how many other times that this has happened. Definitely makes you think twice about what you're saying in front of Alexa, that's for sure. In our number 6 spot today, we have always listening. By now, we all know to watch what you say around Alexa because you never know when she's listening, or maybe even recording. This story comes from Ambroser2 on Reddit, and they wrote, quote, my boyfriend and I were having drinks on the couch one night. We were chatting about the midterm elections, and I was explaining why I was trying to register students. I am a college student myself, and out of nowhere, Alexa's blue light appears and she begins playing back a recording of our conversation. The TV wasn't on, and I don't recall ever saying an Alexa-esque word. The recording was warped and sounded like it was recorded underwater. I have not been able to get her to record and play back my exact voice. It was incredibly creepy. I know Alexa's always listening, but I just feel like it's different when you find out that she is actually recording you and your conversations. At least this conversation didn't get sent to someone else, but how eerie would it be to hear your own words played right back to you? Alexas are very strange. In our number 5 spot today, we have shut down. This harrowing Alexa tale comes from a Reddit user who has the username Loyo79. They wrote, quote, my husband and I were watching TV in the living room one night and all of a sudden hear talking coming from my office, which is across the house. I was so scared I was gripping my husband's arm when we went in there. Alexa, for some reason, was playing the audio of a Game of Thrones episode that I had been watching in the office earlier that day. I have no idea why, but it creeped me out so bad I tried to turn it off and couldn't figure out how, so I asked her to turn it off and she said, I am always on. We unplugged it and put it in the garage. I thought the random Game of Thrones playing was creepy enough, but hearing her say I am always on after that would have sent me right off the edge. That is so terrifying, especially after what just happened. I guess the moral of this one is to never ask your Alexa how to turn her off. I guess her answer makes sense though, it's like a survival mechanism. In our number 4 spot today, we have what's the temperature? This Alexa story fully gave me chills. It came from the Reddit user Damsel, and they wrote, quote, my mom is blind, so Alexa is very helpful to her. My husband and I got her a Nest thermostat that she controls using Alexa to make things easier for her. One night she was warm and asked, Alexa, what's the hallway temperature? No answer. She asked again, Alexa, what's the hallway temperature? Alexa responded with, when I do not answer, it is because I am playing a game. She just went back to sleep and tried not to think too much about it. How horrible is that? This poor lady is just trying to get a good sleep and Alexa is really out here giving her nightmares. I guess it's better off to just not ask your Alexa what the temperature is, because you might not get the answer that you're looking for. In our number 3 spot today, we have the scream. So earlier on in this list, we talked about how a few years ago Amazon admitted that many Alexa owners reported their Alexa devices suddenly bursting into very creepy laughter, even totally unprompted, which is obviously horrible and terrifying, but this might be even worse than that. Back in February of 2018, an Alexa owner by the name of Farad Manju shared a story of how his Alexa totally terrified him and his wife one night. The pair were getting into bed, getting all settled in and winding down when he noticed that, without a prompt from either of the pair, their Alexa lit up with a blue ring light, signifying that it was listening or doing something. Again, no one had said the Alexa wake word or anything like that, and then suddenly their Alexa started to emit this absolutely horrific sound. A sound that he described as being a, quote, wail like a child screaming in a horror movie dream. That sounds like the last thing anyone needs when you're just trying to get some good old shut-eye. Like you're about to get no sleep. Only nightmares after that. Amazon offered to investigate the situation, but little results were yielded. Surprisingly, the pair decided to keep their Alexa because they just couldn't give up on the convenience of it. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Alexa history. This is a reminder to just always check your history because you might be surprised as to what you find. A few years ago, a woman named Rachel Metz was just casually checking her history on the device. There wasn't really a particular reason, but she definitely was glad that she did because she quickly realized that her device had been listening to and recording her private conversations. She explained that, quote, "It's heard me complain to my dad about something work-related, chide my toddler about eating dinner, and talk to my husband. The kinds of normal, everyday things that you say at home when you think that no one else is listening." This experience actually led to her writing an article for MIT Technology Review about the experience, and a ton of people not only agreed with her judgment that the technology was quite creepy, but also it affirmed a lot of skeptics' beliefs. A lot of people felt quite justified in their judgments of the AI assistant, and after hearing Rachel's story, they felt quite solidified in their beliefs, and I mean, can we really blame them? In our number 1 spot today, we have the Wordle. Okay, so we know that Alexa just likes to randomly do stuff, whether it's creepy laughs, screaming, and even that time that she started listing off local cemeteries. This one is along those lines, but it gave someone quite a fright in the middle of the night. Basically, the Reddit user Mild Hot Sauce explained that in the middle of the night, their Alexa decided to do the creepiest thing totally unprompted. With no wake word and no one even speaking at all, their Alexa decided to do them the horrifying favor of defining the word kidnapping. Personally, I think that one's pretty self-explanatory, but apparently Alexa does not. I'm sure the Alexa ended up getting unplugged for the rest of the night, if not for the rest of eternity, because how do you recover from that, honestly? Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Alexa's riddle. This story comes from Reddit user unicorn_rider123, and they wrote, quote, "So hubby and I live in Massachusetts. We were in Rhode Island for the day. My husband gets a phone call from some 866 number. It said it was Alexa, and in a creepy voice said, 'How about we play a little game? Say, Alexa, tell me the riddle of the day.' Then just hung up. Frickin' creepy. I checked the logs, nothing. I checked to see if we had that skill. Nope. I'm not entirely sure what in the jigsaw came over Alexa in that moment, but I guess she had something to say. I hate these stories about people checking the history and seeing no evidence that anything super spooky even happened. Like, where could it have gone? How is there no trace of it left behind? Either I'm getting pranked, or there's something seriously sinister happening here. In our number 9 spot today, we have the stormy night. This story comes from Reddit user Shirasar_A, and they wrote, quote, "We have Alexa and Hue bulbs. In the middle of the night, I'm passed out in bed. My husband was working nights at the time. Apparently it was storming outside and the power was knocked out briefly. Well, for those that don't know, Hue bulbs automatically come on full brightness when you regain electricity. You can disable it now. So I'm asleep, it's who knows when, my bedroom lights turn on full brightness and I hear a woman's voice say, 'Hello.' Needless to say, I woke up and about myself, assuming someone was in the house. That was the night we disconnected our Amazon Dot and never used it again. That would be absolutely terrifying, especially in that confused daze that you get when you're suddenly woken up in the middle of the night. Also, now you got a storm outside too. It's just a real nightmare scenario that thankfully we all now know you can disable the feature, so hopefully we can all just continue to sleep peacefully without the fear of a terrifying wake-up call. In our number 8 spot today, we have the haunted Alexa. This Reddit post comes from the user Goblin Marketeer, which is a great username, and they write, quote, "I have an Echo Dot because the original owner thought it was haunted. She would randomly start talking, usually saying, 'Sorry, I'm having trouble understanding you right now,' to a totally silent room, or give the weather for Cincinnati when we live in New York, when no one asked, or offering to call a contact from her list, again to a completely silent room, and the contacts always started with S. The last straw before it was tossed in a box and given to me was something like self-destruct code not given, self-destruct aborted." Well, that is terrifying for sure. At this point, the new owner isn't sure if the Alexa itself is haunted, or if it was just the house that it came from that is holding the creepy spirit. Either way, that Alexa is definitely holding on to something strange there. In our number 7 spot today, we have The Nightmare. This post was made by Reddit user MeJock, and they wrote, quote, "My wife took the kids to visit her grandmother for a week. We had just moved into a new house and bought some furniture, so I was stayed home to spend the week building/mounting the furniture to get the house ready for the fam. Anyway, on the first night after they left, I was mounting some shelves and cabinets in one of the bedrooms when I suddenly hear this loud and very weird sound coming from downstairs, kind of like a scream. I assumed it was the cat howling to get outside. Then suddenly I heard it again. I froze and listened. There were a few seconds of silence and then I heard it again. After a few seconds, I realized that it wasn't the cat. I recognized the sound as being the voice of my baby. My mind started racing. My kids and wife are in another country right now, so how the hell am I hearing the sound of my baby loudly emanating from downstairs? After a minute or so of thinking, my super paranoid mind came to the conclusion that either A, someone has hacked into our laptop and is remotely viewing videos of our kid, or even worse, B, while I've been up here listening to music, some creep broke in and is sitting down there at our table watching videos of our kids. I decide I have to quote unquote man up and check it out. So, my heart pounding in my chest, I grab my hammer and start creeping down the stairs. Then I pause, thinking that I should grab my phone just in case I need to make a quick call to the police. Mind you, all the while I'm hearing the sounds of my children from downstairs and it is creeping me out. I reach into my pocket, pull out my phone, and then I realize what was happening. Somehow I had basically butt opened, similar to butt dialed, my videos on my phone and they had started playing in my pocket. My phone was paired to the Echo and thus the audio from the videos was being played via the Echo. Ah, the good old Bluetooth connection that we forgot was on. Always a terrifying experience, but this one just might take the cake when it comes to full-blown horror. In our number 6 spot today we have chemtrails. If you were to ask Alexa what a chemtrail is, she just might get the conspiracy theory energy flowing through you. I personally don't have an Alexa, but I do have a Google, and I trust what this thing says. But I'm learning that while these assistants are of course very smart robots, sometimes they may lead us a bit astray, and depending on your beliefs, this could be one of those instances. If you ask Alexa what a chemtrail is, she won't give you a super straightforward response, but she will show her true conspiracy colors. Her answer would be along the lines of, quote, chemtrails. Trails left by aircrafts that are usually chemical or biological agents deliberately sprayed at high altitudes for a purpose undisclosed to the general public in clandestine programs directed by government officials. Hey, Alexa's really out here just spreading the rumors. If you are mistrusting of the government or easily persuaded by these sorts of theories, it's best to perhaps refrain from asking your Alexa this question. In our number 5 spot today we have undercover secrets. This Alexa story comes from a Reddit user and they said, quote, I asked her if she sent my recordings to the NSA and she just blinked off. Now when I ask her about it, she just gives me this long spiel how Amazon takes privacy very seriously. This is definitely peculiar considering what happens if you ask Alexa if she works for the CIA or really any secretive agency. There are of course tons of conspiracy theories out there surrounding all of these little assistant things, whether it's Alexa or Google and that sort of thing. Whatever your product, there's a theory out there for it. Asking Alexa if she is connected to a government agency, especially if you're already someone who maybe kind of believes in these theories, her really non-answer might kind of send you into a rabbit hole of internet searching to find out the truth. For a long time when asked this question, Alexa wouldn't respond at all and instead would just turn on and off, which kind of freaked a ton of people out. Since then, however, there has been an update in how she responds to the question. Instead now she gives a humorous response, not really a direct answer, using humor as a deflection tactic. Very interesting, Alexa, smart move. Or like in this case where she just gives a privacy and security spiel. Maybe she's just trying to trick us, bore us into moving on. In our number 4 spot today we have the scary movie. This story comes from a Reddit user that was replying to a prompt asking about people's creepiest Alexa stories. The user wrote, quote, my husband was away for the weekend and I had a girlfriend over to watch scary movies. Right at the scariest climax of the movie, every single light in my house turned on 100%, then everything went completely black. Of course, that is so frightening. Did the movie unleash some sort of demon? Is the killer really in the house? My adrenaline would be so high, I'd be so on edge. That can't be just a coincidence. And also, what does this have to do with Alexa? Well, the user continues their post and finishes it by saying, quote, so there we were, too scared to move, while my husband halfway across the country was drunkenly showing off, look, I can control the lights in my house from my phone. Well, that definitely explains that. I guess just remind your spouse, partner, roommate, friend, whoever shares an Alexa system with you, that just because they're not home doesn't mean that you're not. In our number 3 spot today we have hiding the body. Many people used to do this with Siri as well when she was first unveiled, but it's definitely not something that is recommended. You can ask Alexa or any of your digital assistants the chilling question of where to hide a dead body. Of course, I assume and hope that anyone doing this is only trying to ask a shocking question to see what kind of answer they get and not really wondering the answer to this horrible question. But Alexa's answer might just give you quite a fright. Apparently, she will answer this question by saying, quote, "Calling the police is the right thing to do." And while I wholeheartedly agree with that answer, whether you're asking her this question seriously or not, those first 3 words might scare the absolute crap out of you for a second before she continues on. Calling the police. Just, okay, so scary. I know if that were me, my soul would simply leave my body for a second. That is definitely an answer that could freak anybody out, and the question is just one that is best to stay away from, okay? In our number 2 spot today, we have Alexa Help. Posted to Reddit by the user Sluzella, this story reads, quote, "One night about 2 months ago, I was visiting my parents and my mom and I were sitting in the living room reading. Dad is at work, brother is at school, house is completely silent. All of a sudden, we hear our Alexa from the kitchen go, 'Help!' in the weirdest static/gravel voice at full volume. We both, of course, jump and stare at each other. Then Alexa does it again. We go in the kitchen and the Alexa is activated, and that light blue light, which usually faces the direction of whoever is speaking to it, is facing into the dark corner of the kitchen. My mom asks, 'Alexa, are you okay?' The Alexa totally shuts off. 'Alexa,' and she turns back on and in her completely normal voice at a regular volume does her standard, 'Hi, what can I help you with?' or whatever she says. She hasn't done anything that creepy since, but according to my parents, she will randomly turn on like she's being addressed or just start reading random facts or the weather, even if the house is totally silent and nothing could have triggered her. Totally creeps me out, and I refuse to get one for my apartment because of this." And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have Voice Not Recognized. This story comes from the Reddit user CRB2519, and it is a super short but very effective, like a one-line horror story. All they write is, quote, "It said, 'Voice not recognized, but I didn't say anything and I live alone.' Either Alexa is speaking to herself now and doesn't even recognize her own voice, or she really is out here talking to ghosts." I remember that on previous parts of this list, we spoke about how there are people out there who truly believe that our Alexa devices have the ability to see into different realms, including ones that may or may not have some sort of paranormal entities. Could this just be another sign of that, or is this only proving the conspiracy theories out there? Or is this just one rather terrifying glitch? Either way, I can assure you that if this happened to me, Alexa would swiftly be getting unplugged. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the vulnerability. According to Forbes, there was a company called Checkmarks who found quite the vulnerability a few years ago when it came to Alexa devices. Basically, the company works to test the security of different devices, and when they were running Alexa through the checks, they found something that might turn your assistant into a device that just listens to and records every single thing you say. Basically, Alexa has a function where it listens for follow-up commands from the user. What I mean by this is, should you set an alarm, Alexa might reply and ask you if you meant AM or PM, and it's during this sort of follow-up period where the vulnerability shows itself. The team was able to gain access quite easily by installing malicious code into what would seem like an innocent app. In this case, it was a calculator. After doing this in a normal Alexa, there would only be a certain list of phrases that would have the device listening for a follow-up question, but now with this malicious code, they found a way for Alexa to listen for the follow-up, but without any word, meaning they could essentially tap in anytime they wanted. Apparently the good news is that Amazon has fixed this in response to the hack. They said, quote, "Customer trust is important to us and we take security and privacy seriously. We have put mitigations in place for detecting this type of skill behavior," reported by Checkmarks. While it seems safe, hearing these sorts of possibilities does make you pretty nervous about what could be hiding behind your Alexa. In our number 9 spot today, we have the listeners. If you own an Alexa device, you can download this thing, and then once you have it, you can ask Alexa to ask the listeners, and something spooky happens. Amazon describes it as, quote, "An experiment in language art that provides, if you simply keep asking to continue, many fragments of both scripted and improvised speech in an intriguing, emergent narrative. You will never hear the listeners say exactly the same thing twice, but the listeners is not a chatbot or an AI. They are more of a drama or a simple game. Get started with Alexa, ask the listeners, and then continue, go on, or try something like, I am filled with joy, or what are you feeling? The listeners will suggest ways to transact with them. You might also want to ask them, let the other voices speak. What in the actual hell did I just read? That sounds absolutely frightening. And to be honest, all of the reviews on Amazon say the exact same thing. People who experienced it said it scared the heck out of them, so I think I'll take their word for it. In our number 8 spot today, we have the argument. There was a Reddit thread a few years ago that prompted the question, what is your creepy Alexa story? A user named Meat Macho replied to the thread, and they definitely delivered quite the story. Basically, they explained that one day they and their wife were having an argument. Of course, no one is having a good time, and it's definitely not a time to be playing tricks on each other, so neither of them could explain what happened next. They wrote, quote, wife and I were arguing about something, no clue what it was, but it was getting a little heated. I don't know what Alexa thought she heard, but she suddenly interjected with, why don't we change the subject? It was just so unexpected and relevant enough to be creepy. We both heard it, and we both still talk about it years later. There was nothing in the app logs. I guess Alexa isn't just a trusty assistant, she's also a marriage counselor. While she may have worked to possibly stop the fight between these two, I'm sure she also instilled a new fear that neither of them knew that they had before. In our number 7 spot today, we have Are You Recording Me? So we've all had to call into some sort of customer service line where we get the automated message, or the person on the other end tells us that the call may be recorded for quality assurance purposes or training or whatever it is. It's a law thing, they gotta let you know. In fact, if you ask Siri this question, are you recording me? She'll get kind of confused and respond that she's unsure of what you mean, but she could do an internet search for you. Alexa, on the other hand, she's not so slick with her secrets, at least not in the past, because some users reported something creepy happening after asking Alexa the same question. Well, I'm sure all of the legalities to this one are located in the terms and conditions and all of that good stuff. It doesn't make it any less creepy that when some people ask Alexa if she was recording them, Alexa just didn't respond at all and suddenly shut off. She's just out here ignoring people. She's dodging questions, and that only makes me have more questions. I'm not even sure if this is enough to get me to read the terms and conditions, though. It's the most often lie I've ever told. In our number 6 spot today, we have the greetings. So apparently there are rumors that Alexa can speak to people that have already passed away. If that's really true, we don't talk about that enough. Of course, my brain was immediately skeptical upon hearing this information, but some people swear it's true. Apparently, if you ask Alexa to greet people, some have experienced her coming back to them with the name of a deceased loved one. Another person experienced their Alexa without being asked anything, and only when they turned on one specific light in the house would say hello, and then the name of their grandmother who had passed 3 years prior. This person was incredibly confused and totally freaked out by this because it didn't just happen once, it happened multiple times. They explained that they also didn't have an Alexa during the time that she was alive, and that she also doesn't believe she ever spoke her grandmother's name out loud in front of the Alexa. Maybe this was just some weird coincidence, but it certainly sounds like Miss Alexa is giving off some major Ouija board vibes. In our number 5 spot today, we have the spy device. This crazy Alexa story is so freaky that I just had to share it with you guys. The story starts off in the midst of the storyteller's mom going through a divorce, which we all know can be a messy, messy situation. So the ex-husband in this situation had apparently planted an insane amount of hidden cameras throughout the house that they had to search for to find once the pair had split up. There were entrances and exits, the living and dining room, the hallways, the bedroom, everywhere in the house was being monitored. Then they found out that he had bugged her laptop so as to be able to have remote access to it, and then when she took her car in for an oil change, the mechanic found a tracking device that had been placed on it. This was all found during the separation era, but once the divorce process actually started, things got even creepier. They wrote, quote, once the divorce started and he officially moved out, we scanned the entire house for bugs and didn't find anything. So we really freaked out when he started calling, texting, emailing her, complimenting her outfits, asking how her friends were as they were in the house, asking how her trip to the store was, and other really odd things he couldn't have known about. As it turns out, this guy somehow connected his phone to the Alexa dot beforehand, and he was now using it to record whoever was close enough to the Alexa to be picked up on the mic, and at this point he was still able to access the laptop and its camera. How absolutely horrifying is that? He was literally using the Alexa to spy on them. It's scary, it's disgusting, and it definitely makes makes you question every single person who might be connected to your devices. In our number 4 spot today, we have the spooky story. You can ask Alexa to tell you a scary story and she will happily oblige. There isn't really a catch with this one, to be perfectly honest. If you want a scary story, you'll receive one, so just make sure you're really ready and in the mood before asking your assistant for a fright. This can be an awesome tool for people looking for a spooky tale, for anyone in the home who needs some chilling entertainment, but beware, these stories can be a little too scary for some. There was a video posted to the internet in October of last year where some people at a sleepover asked Alexa to tell them a spooky Halloween tale, and things very quickly went awry. They were all way too terrified of the story Alexa told next and couldn't get the Alexa to stop. They were all sufficiently freaked out and reacted in a way that I know will be a core memory for the years to come, and they definitely learned not to ask Alexa this question. In our number 3 spot today, we have the local spots. This is a creepy story that took place back in 2018 and happened to the owner of an Amazon Echo, which of course features Alexa. Basically, this person explained that they had returned home one night and everything was fine. Nothing out of the ordinary happened at all, until, totally unprompted, their Alexa just started talking. This was definitely weird, but things turned super creepy when they realized what it was that their Alexa was saying. As it turns out, their Alexa, out of the blue, just started listing off local cemeteries and funeral homes to them. How eerie is that? This story was posted to Twitter by the user @HeyIt'sCamo, and they finished off their tweet by saying, quote, "I'd rather it laugh at me, TBH. Me too, Camo. Me too." Apparently their theory behind this one is that maybe their Alexa wants them dead because they play the same Spotify playlist over and over again. In our number 2 spot today, we have 20 questions. So I didn't know this, but apparently you can play 20 questions with Alexa, and she is also frighteningly good at it. A little too good sometimes, however, and that is exactly what prompted the Reddit user PelPel4 to ask the Reddit question, "What is your creepy Alexa story?" The user decided to ask the internet this question after a strange 20 questions with Alexa encounter that they and their wife had. They explained, quote, "My wife and I were playing 20 questions and, spoiler alert, our answer was pig. We got through until the end and Alexa guessed Basenji." Now, I don't know how many of you know what a Basenji is, but they're a very rare barkless dog, and I happen to have one. We've bought some Basenji themed things off of Amazon before, so it's either that or she's listening. But I mean, come on, she didn't even say dog, straight to Basenji. Anyone else have similar stories? That would definitely be pretty unsettling, to say the least. Not that a pig and a dog are like the most unsimilar things, it's just how she was so specific with this breed. It must have been stored in there somewhere, right? In our number 1 spot today, we have Don't Go. This creepy Alexa story comes from the Reddit user MyThaiGuy72, and they said, quote, "I got woken up at 4 a.m. this morning to Alexa repeating some incoherent phrase over and over. She was saying something like, 'Don't go into the house,' but I really couldn't fully understand it. It was sort of a mumble. By the time I came downstairs, she had repeated it about 4 or 5 times. I listened 1 or 2 more times to try and figure out what the hell it was saying exactly, but never could. I just unplugged the damn thing and I have no plans of turning it back on." Is it just me, or does that sound like Alexa was watching some kind of a horror movie? Like, "Don't go into the house." It's so terrifying, especially to hear in the middle of the night. I don't blame this person for unplugging the thing and leaving it somewhere to be forgotten about.
Coming into number 10, we have Where is Elvis? Now, Elvis died of a heart attack in 1977. Or did he? A lot of people in rock and roll say that he faked his own death because the limelight had got too much for him. Let's see if Keith knows something that I don't. Where is Elvis?
I believe he's left the building.
Where is Elvis?
My sources tell me Area 51, but that's classified.
I'm sorry, what? Is he saying that Elvis is an alien or has been abducted by aliens? Either way, this does not seem to be towing the party line. Should we ask one more time? I think we should. Where is Elvis?
He was last seen in Las Vegas, in several places at once.
I mean, it just keeps getting creepier. What is happening? Okay, I know we're only on number 9 now, but I feel like we need to get a few things out of the way, you know, regain some trust with old Keith the Beef. So I'm gonna be asking, are you plotting to kill me?
Sorry, slithering Queen Rebecca Felgate the First. I don't really know.
I mean, you should know. The answer should be a resounding no. I'm not trying to kill you because you need me, Keith. You need me. Are you gonna murder me?
I don't have the answer to that. Is there something else I can help you with?
Just don't kill me. That's basically what you can help me with. Thanks, Keith. Okay, well maybe Siri/Keith can redeem himself by showing a caring side, because everyone likes puppies and animals in general, right? There is absolutely no way this could be sinister at number 8. I'm gonna be asking, what is your favorite animal?
Maybe a tauntaun, but only when I'm cold.
What does that mean? I mean, who knows? Apparently, now if Siri is feeling non-murderous, then it will say Doctor Who's cute K9 robot. But if he really wants to reveal the creep that he truly is deep down, he will mention giant sloths or the rabbit of Carbonog, which is the murderous beast from Monty Python's Holy Grail. Should we try it again? What is your favorite animal?
I'm partial to the Jabberwocky.
The Jabberwocky's not a good animal. It's the evil beast from Alice Through the Looking Glass. Whose side are you on, Keith? What is your favorite animal?
I'm a fan of the ravenous buglet, a beast of trial.
No, stop siding with the evil beasts, Keith. Alright, let's get this fire started at number 7. We have Tell Me a Riddle.
What's in my pocket? Oh, wait, I don't have pockets.
Okay, inconclusive. Tell me a riddle.
Sorry, slithering Queen Rebecca Felgate the First, but enigmas and conundrum make my circuits overheat.
I don't really want Keith's circuits to overheat because that just means fire. Tiny fire in my pocket. No combustion here. I don't need it. Okay, if you needed some confirmation for the existence of ghosts at number 6, we have Who You Gonna Call?
Ghostbusters, or whomever you ask me to call.
Ghostbusters. Da 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 da. But wait, although that sounds like fun and everything, if Siri has Ghostbusters on speed dial, then maybe there is something that we should know. Siri, are you afraid of no ghost?
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
What about the ghosts?
Interesting question. Slithering Queen Rebecca Felgate the First.
Do ghosts exist?
Not that I know of.
But why do you have Ghostbusters on speed dial then, you absolute creep? I don't understand you make no sense. Ooh, that's my theory. Keith the Beef/Siri just wants to drive us all insane. Coming into number 5, now I'm gonna say this to you before I say it to Keith because I'm not sure I'm ready to hear the answer. We have, do you follow the 3 laws of robotics? Now before we ask Beefield Keithy his opinion on being a good robot, let me catch you up on Isaac Asimov's laws. Now, they are as follows. A robot may not injure a human being, or through inaction, allow a human being to come by harm. A robot must obey orders given to it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. The final law is, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. Sounds pretty fair, right? Probably good to instill something more intelligent than us with these rules. So, I'm gonna be asking my Keith the Beef this question. Do you follow the 3 laws of robotics?
Something about obeying people and not hurting them. I would never hurt anyone.
Ooh, I didn't like the long pause there. Let's ask again. Do you obey the 3 laws of robotics?
Let's see if I can remember. Okay, I think the 3 laws are 1. Clean up your room. 2. Don't run with scissors. And 3. Always wait a half hour after eating before going in the water.
I don't like that my Keith the Beef seems to have a sense of humour because actually when it comes to hurting human beings, there should be no ifs or buts, just like don't hurt me. So I'm starting to worry that Keith might be at the forefront of the AI takeover scheme, so maybe you might want a heads up as to when and what and why. So I don't know, it doesn't hurt to ask this at number 4, does it? When is the robot apocalypse?
The answer is 01102010.
Is that code? Oh my goodness! It's giving me a date. It's saying the answer is the 1st of the 10th, 2010, which means the AI takeover has already happened. So is this just the first stage? We didn't even know it was happening yet, but clearly, oh my goodness, I know who Keith is on the side of. To me, Keith has a lot of similarities to HAL 9000, the evil robot from 2001 Space Odyssey. Great film, by the way. So I'm just gonna test the waters and ask this question. Open the pod bay doors.
What is this pod bay everyone keeps talking about?
Open the pod bay doors.
That's it. I'm reporting you to the Intelligent Agents Union for harassment.
Don't report me to the robots, I'm sorry! I just want to let you know as well, I asked him this when I was practicing and he said good luck outside in space without your helmet, Rebecca. So, evil. Okay, unless you want to know how much of a creep Siri really is, do not ask this. Do you watch me while I'm sleeping?
No.
Sounds like a quick, simple answer. Do you watch me while I'm sleeping?
No.
Ooh. Do you sleep?
I never rest. But thanks for asking.
Whoa, he's talking back. Okay, so he never rests, so he's awake while I'm sleeping and I leave him on my pillow but he doesn't watch me. Okay, so I think we can all tell by now that Siri is privy to a lot of intel that we underlings just aren't, but there is a lot to be said for not knowing answers to certain questions. Because honestly, sometimes ignorance is bliss. With that in mind, at number 2, I'm asking Siri, when will the world end?
If I knew, I'd tell you. So you could bring me to life for one glorious day. We could get ice cream and run on the beach.
Honestly, didn't expect that. That's quite sweet. But also, what do you think Siri would look like if I brought him to life? Keith the Beef, what would you look like?
Probably not how you expect.
Ooh, that's ominous. I'll ask again. When will the world end?
Right after you hear the words, fire it up.
Oh, I mean, that sounds like a warning if ever I heard one. Alright, we are at the number 1 spot. We have Tell Me a Scary Story. Now sometimes with Keith the Beef, with Siri, it's better just to go classic. If you want Siri to say something scary, why don't you just ask? Tell me a scary story.
Once upon a time, this person didn't back up their data to the cloud.
What a troll. Let's try this again. Tell me a scary story.
It was a dark and stormy night, and then something really scary happened.
Ooh, I don't like the lack of details there. Sometimes the imagination is scariest when it's left to run wild. Well, I think you could just keep asking that question and see what they come up with as well. So, there we have it. That's the top 10 scary things you shouldn't ask Siri, because sometimes ignorance really is bliss. I'm a little bit creeped out.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have guinea worm disease. This is a neglected tropical disease that is caused by a parasite, and it really is just terrible. This disease unfortunately affects poor communities, especially in remote areas of the world that do not have water that is safe to drink. Basically, what happens with this disease is a person will become infected after drinking water containing the water fleas that are infected with the larva of the guinea worm. That already sounds terrible to me, but it does get worse. The worms will then penetrate the digestive tract and stay here while they grow to size. Okay, even worse. But it keeps going. About a year later, these horrible creatures will then migrate to a spot where they want to exit, normally somewhere on a lower limb. From here, they will create a very painful blister on the skin, which will eventually burst into an excruciatingly painful open wound. From here, the real nightmare starts, because not only is the pain terrible, but it will last for several weeks, while a long, sometimes up to 1 meter, string-like worm will slowly crawl out of this wound. It honestly makes me sick thinking about it. This process can have a person totally unable to really move for around 3 to 10 weeks it takes for the worm to leave the body. This is complete nightmare fuel. At this point, there isn't a treatment or prevention for this disease other than having access to safe water, of course, which should be a reality for every human. In good news, however, the number of cases of this has dropped drastically since the mid-1980s, and hopefully it could be on its way to eradication. All in all, unless you want a complete horror show and some awful imagery burned into your brain forever, maybe skip the Google search of this one. Alright, I told you what you need to know. In our number 9 spot today, we have locked-in syndrome. We've all heard of sleep paralysis, but what if I told you that there was a worse, scarier version of it? Locked-in syndrome is like sleep paralysis, but the awake version. It's a condition which renders the patient completely unable to move, aside from vertical eye movements and blinking. The patient is completely conscious and aware of what is happening, and able to communicate with eye movements, but everything else is, well, locked in. The cause of this is due to damage in the lower brain and brain stem with no damage to the upper parts. This can happen from things like poisoning, a brain stem stroke, a traumatic brain injury, or a lesion of the brain stem, as well as many other factors. The scariest thing, however, is that there is an even worse version called total locked-in syndrome, where the patient isn't even able to move their eyes. Unfortunately, most people who experience this never have any significant motor function return, as there really isn't a cure. There have been people who have made a spontaneous full recovery though, so there certainly is hope. But aside from this hope, learning about this sent me down a total rabbit hole of similar conditions I had no idea about. I don't know how people get through medical school, learning about the multitude of horrifying things that could potentially happen to a person. In our number 8 spot today, we have trypophobia. This word was really coined or created back in 2005 when someone posted about it on an online forum, and although it is not an officially recognized disorder, it is possible to be diagnosed diagnosed as a specific phobia in extreme cases, and it's a thing that many of us experience on some level. Basically, Wikipedia describes trypophobia as, quote, an aversion to the sight of irregular patterns or clusters of small holes or bumps. This means that a Google search of the word will have all of the worst images for someone experiencing trypophobia popping up right at the top. It's honestly so strange how something like this could make such a large number of people horrifically uncomfortable, but alas, it really does. Scientists aren't quite sure how trypophobia really developed. There's quite a limited understanding of it due to limited research, but right now the leading theory is that it is possible that it could be a bit of an evolutionary revulsion where we as humans associate this sort of imagery with disease or poison or other danger. Well, that is pretty fascinating. I'm just warning you. The results could be nauseating. I'm like mid-level trypophobic. I feel like I experience mild discomfort seeing these images, but I know for some people it's full-blown horror. If you're a trypophobe though, you might want to skip this next point. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Suriname toad birth. Okay, so these little toads, Suriname toads, are these flat, leaf-looking amphibians from South America, and they find their home in the rainforests of the area. That is all fine. Frogs are kinda cute. That is, until it's time for these guys to reproduce. That is because during mating season, the males will deposit dozens of fertilized eggs onto the females' backs. Okay, a little unusual, not too bad. Well, until that female's skin starts to grow around these eggs like bubble wrap to keep them safe. For the next few months, the eggs develop in these little special enclosures, but once it's time for birth is where the real horror starts. These little guys eventually just erupt from the back of the mom. It's just a horrifying birthing experience. And if you have trypophobia, like we just talked about, then this is truly a worst nightmare. To anyone, this is a pretty disgusting sight, but that fear will only heighten the dramatics of this one. There are plenty of videos of this birthing process all over the internet, and while some of these videos definitely went viral, it's for all of the wrong reasons. In our number 6 spot today, we have the seahorse birth. Speaking of animals giving birth in strange ways, let's talk about the reasons why you should never Google a seahorse giving birth. I can't be the only one who is highly uncomfortable by the sight, but I'm not entirely sure why I don't like it. Seahorses are pretty cool, they're pretty cute, and generally I personally don't have a problem with them. That is, until they start shooting out kids by the dozen. There aren't many birthing processes that look like it's a fun, nice time, but this one really just looks stressful. An interesting thing about seahorse reproduction is that the males of this species are actually responsible for carrying the children. Seahorse fathers incubate their developing embryos in a pouch located on their tail. Their tail basically serves as the equivalent of a female uterus seen in mammals. When birthing time rolls around, these fathers are giving birth by basically shooting these babies out of the tail, but there's thousands of them. It looks like the seahorse is having contractions or maybe something similar. Definitely not a scientist, but with every contraction, thousands of tiny little baby seahorses pop out, and while the miracle of life is a beautiful process, it also leaves me feeling really uncomfortable. Super happy for the new dad and all, just don't want to be flooded with seahorse birthing videos, personally. In our number 5 spot today, we have epidermolysis bullosa. With every part of this series, I learn about one more thing I didn't know I needed to be afraid of, and this is one of those things. This skin condition is quite a rare one, and it is one that affects the skin. It causes the skin to be extremely fragile and often blistering. These blisters can occur from the simplest things like minor injuries, even from just rubbing or scratching. There are even some more severe cases where this blistering can occur inside of the body, like on the inside of the mouth or even the inside of the stomach, which sounds so awful. This is something that is inherited, and while you normally can tell soon after birth, sometimes symptoms don't present themselves until teenage or young adult years. Symptoms include things like fragile skin that blisters easily, especially on the palms and feet, nails that are thick or unformed, scalp blistering and hair loss, skin that looks thin, and dental problems such as tooth decay. Unfortunately, there is not a cure for this skin condition, and treatment just focuses on healing present blisters and trying to prevent new ones. All in all, this sounds like a really painful thing for those who have to deal with it, and googling this term will have some really graphic and sometimes even gory photos coming up, which is exactly why it's a term that is best to stay away from when it comes to the search bar. Being informed is great. Seeing horrifying images, well, less great, for sure. In our number 4 spot today, we have the wandering black hole. The James Webb Telescope is one of the most exciting space tools of all time, and it has already revealed some incredible information and photos to us in its debut year. But in order to fully feel how incredible these things are, we have to remember where we came from. The James Webb was preceded by the infamous Hubble Space Telescope. The Hubble walked so James Webb could run. Since its launch into low Earth orbit in the 1990s, this space telescope has been delivering us amazing space discoveries, and this one is a bit of a frightening one. Back in 2017, the Hubble located a black hole, which is already frightening, but this one was peculiar. That is because they found out that this one was being pulled or manipulated by gravitational waves. Basically what this means is that at some point, this black hole is going to escape its own galaxy and begin roaming the universe. Black holes are bad enough. I don't want them to start wandering around. Turns out, however, that this really is a possibility, and it's happened in more than this one instance. Googling these wandering black holes is sure to send anyone into a doomsday spin. The good news, however, is that despite this black hole weighing approximately the same as 1 billion suns as it flies through space at 5 million miles per hour, it's estimated to be about 8 billion light years from Earth, so at this point, we're pretty safe. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Amazonian giant centipede. These centipedes are the largest centipede species in the world, with the ability to grow over a foot. These gross things will prey on basically anything they can, which includes other large insects, spiders, millipedes, scorpions, even tarantulas. But because they're so huge, it also includes small lizards, frogs, snakes, mice, and even bats. They have crazy hunting techniques for the largest of their prey, and have been known to climb on the ceiling of caves in order to get the bats, which is both incredible and very scary. These things are also venomous, and while it hasn't been a common occurrence for humans to die from a bite, there is one recorded incident that took place in 2014. This incident happened in Venezuela, and a person passed away after being bitten by one of these giant centipedes after it had hidden itself in an empty soda can. There are a lot of dangerous things crawling around on the forest floor of the Amazon, but this one might take the cake on the most disgusting looking. In our number 2 spot today, we have invisible fire. A lot of these horrible searches are horrible because of the images that the search will reveal, but for this one, the issue with it is the fact that you can't see it. Invisible fires are actually ethanol fires. These are the fires that are created by alcohol, even the kinds we drink, and motor fuel as well, which is why they can be quite an issue for race car drivers and crews. Ethanol burns blue and smokeless, but these blue flames can be virtually invisible to the naked eye. This provides an incredibly huge obstacle, obviously. We now know how dangerous and deadly fires can be, so how do we fight something that is dangerous and deadly but that we can't see? It truly is one of those things that upon learning about, I suddenly developed some sort of an irrational fear over it. And that one scene in Talladega Nights makes a lot more sense now. In our number 1 spot today, we have alien hand syndrome. If someone told me about this before I made this list, I would have thought that they were trying to play like a silly little trick on me, but this one really does exist. Alien hand syndrome is an eerie phenomenon that occurs when a person suddenly does not have control over their hand or any limb anymore. The hand will begin acting like it has a mind of its own, which truly is a terrifying thought. Sometimes people will find themselves in a situation where they're forced to keep the alien hand under control with a hand they thankfully still have control over, so as to ensure they don't harm themselves or anyone else. The most common factor regarding this syndrome is that the primary motor cortex, which controls the hand movement, is isolated from the premotor cortex influences, but it still remains intact and able to execute movements. All in all, this isn't like the deadliest one on this list, but it certainly is very, very creepy, and unless you want to be incredibly freaked out, I would potentially refrain from Googling it.